Hello, everyone. Welcome to this month's Knowledge Pill series. My name is Frank Bentum. I am the Executive Manager for Africa Open Science and Hardware, AfricaOSH. And this month's Knowledge Pills will be an introduction to AfricaOSH. But before we dive into AfricaOSH, I'd like to talk a little about Open Science Hardware. Open Science Hardware comprises two basic elements, which are science hardware or scientific hardware and open source. Scientific hardware or science hardware refers to the tools and the machinery we use for scientific endeavors, such as microscopes, environmental sensors, calorimeters, etc. And open source as a concept refers to innovation or creation that is free to use, free to change, to study, or to distribute. So in its entirety, open science hardware refers to science hardware that is open source, low cost, and accessible. What this means for us Africans is that open science hardware creates an alternative path to firstly education, where African educators and educational institutes now have the opportunity to develop scientific tools that are low cost and equally effective as compared to closed scientific innovations that are significantly expensive and mostly unaffordable for African educational institutes and educators. It also creates an alternative path to manufacturing where African creators and African makers can leverage open designs for prototyping and manufacturing new products, creating a more decentralized and distributed system of manufacturing. Thirdly, it also creates an alternative path to innovation. The open source nature of open science hardware lowers the barriers to accessing scientific tools and scientific designs, making it easier for individuals and organizations in Africa to experiment and to innovate without the financial burden associated with proprietary technology. The AfricaOSH is a regional community of the global open science hardware community, the GOSH community. And the AfricaOSH community is one that is full of makers, maker spaces, scientists, etc., who share collective vision of making open science hardware ubiquitous in Africa. One of the pillars of AfricaOSH is to start a conversation by and for Africans on how to benefit from the maker movement, open science, and open hardware. And the mission of AfricaOSH essentially is to promote the widespread adoption of open principles and practices during their scientific journey and among the African scientific ecosystem. AfricaOSH community membership ranges across 5 different continents, with over 350 members coming from 48 different countries, of which 33 of those countries are African countries and 15 are non-African countries. AfricaOSH's flagship program is the AfricaOSH Summit, which is a grassroots effort to bring together researchers, scientists, makers, maker spaces, educators, etc. from Africa and the rest of the world. The goal of the AfricaOSH Summit is to create a set of actions on open science hardware among African actors and between them and the international community in order to adopt open science hardware practices and principles that are appropriate to our context. AfricaOSH has hosted 3 summits so far. The first summit was in 2018 in Ghana. The second summit was in 2019 in Tanzania. And the third summit was in 2022 in Cameroon. Here we have some shots from the 3 summits hosted by AfricaOSH. The first frame is the 2018 summit in Ghana at Kumasi Hive. The next frame is the 2019 summit in Tanzania at Stick Lab, now known as Bongo Tech Lab. And the last frame is the 2022 summit at Imwa Lab in Cameroon. I'd like to use this opportunity to talk about one of the popular outcomes of the AfricaOSH Summit, which is the Africa Archive platform, a Pan-African open access portal. Africa Archive is a community-led digital archive that is dedicated to the discoverability and the visibility of African research. The idea for Africa Archive came about during the 2018 AfricaOSH Summit when Dr. Johanna Haveman, who is the co-founder of Africa Archive, during her presentation at the summit, emphasized on a need for Africans to have an open repository that is dedicated to the visibility and the discoverability of African research. And since in its inception in 2018, Africa Archive has received over 600 submissions in research and from 33 different African countries. In AfricaOSH's effort to create a community for open science hardware in Africa, we organize monthly community calls to discuss ongoing community member projects and initiatives. These community calls are platforms for community members to interact with each other, to share knowledge, and to seek for communal support for their project. AfricaOSH also hosts webinars where experts and community members and also open science hardware enthusiasts discuss topics related to open science and open hardware. These webinars serve as a platform for knowledge sharing and networking. GOSH, the Global Open Science Hardware Community, and AfricaOSH and REGOSH, which is the Latin American version of AfricaOSH, developed a series of animated videos on open science hardware for a wider audience. These videos can be found on the AfricaOSH website, the GOSH community YouTube channel, and the GOSH website. These videos are available in Spanish, French, and in English. The purpose of these videos is to provide a broader perspective or an in-depth perspective on what open science hardware, which is primarily, the videos are primarily targeted at students and people who are interested in open science hardware. AfricaOSH also has its open science hardware workshop. These workshops are hands-on events where participants learn about open science hardware as a concept and also learn how to design, how to build, how to document, and use open source hardware for scientific research, education, and innovation. These workshops offer an interactive and a collaborative environment where participants can gain practical skills, share knowledge, and develop open hardware projects. The African European Maker Innovation Ecosystem, acronym the MAKE project, is also a project that AfricaOSH is proud to be a part of. The MAKE project is a Horizon 2020 funded project, which focuses on maker spaces as key drivers for local digital innovation in Africa and in Europe. AfricaOSH supports work package leaders, several work package leaders, to accomplish their goals and objectives of the project. Some of the work packages that AfricaOSH supports include supporting work package leaders to develop a policy framework for innovation hubs across Africa and in Europe, and to support in the development of a mutual recognition of hardware skills in the form of the Maker Passport, in the development of a global map for maker spaces across Africa and Europe, along with their respective machinery. AfricaOSH is also supporting work package leaders on the development of a massive open online course and an open makerspace toolkit, which will contain several chapters on how to set up, equip, sustain, and manage the different types of innovation spaces. As part of AfricaOSH's mission to promote the widespread adoption of open science hardware practices and principles, we collaborate with researchers to develop reports on open science hardware for various stakeholders. This year, AfricaOSH collaborated with Dr. Julieta Arancio of the Open Hardware Makers, and who is also a postdoctoral research associate at the Drexel University in the UK, to develop a report for science funders and university managers on how to support open science hardware in academia. This report can be accessed via the website osh-policy.org. Before I sign off, I would like to emphasize the mission of AfricaOSH as one that is committed to the widespread adoption of open science hardware practices and principles and also creating a community of dedicated, passionate, and committed Africans who are also dedicated to the adoption of to making open science hardware ubiquitous in Africa. Thank you.